Hi, I'm Rob, and I do stuff. I'm one of those people who gets bored really easily. And when I get bored, I take the time to think about what's next. What's my next challenge? What's the next adventure? What's the next thing that I'm willing to take on? I'm not a superstar. I'm not a fantastic athlete. I'm not the brightest person in the entire world, but that never stops me from taking on the next new challenge. Welcome to my YouTube channel, where an average guy does above average things. Maybe not the best possible. It's my crash landing. But I get the job done. I grew up in a small town in Canada, currently living in Ottawa, Ontario, Canada. Some of the things that I've done in my life, really odd jobs. When I was younger, I used to catch chickens for a living. And then I went to school and joined the military for a little while. And I was one of those guys with the big black furry hats and the red jackets, standing there without smiling, which is really hard for me to do because I just smile and I'm relaxed all the time. I wanted to introduce you to somebody special that helps me out a lot. So I'm Rob.
I'm Sidda.
I'm Canadian.
I'm Brazilian.
I speak English.
Yeah, me too, but I speak Portuguese.
A little bit of French.
No French at all. I was a DJ. Actually, I'm still a DJ for 7 years already.
I am a full-time adventurer.
I love hot weathers.
I love hot weather too. I love the beach.
I love the beach, especially Ipanema. And you don't know Ipanema, I need to take you there.
I am kind of quiet.
I'm a really noisy and loud. And I'm totally emotional. And I can cry for everything and anything. You don't?
Probably not. I'm always happy, I don't know. I would jump out of a plane.
I did it once. I would never do it again.
My role in all of this is to think up crazy things, give them a go, learn along the way.
And I need to take care of him so he doesn't kill himself in the middle of these things.
I'm sorry?
That was for you, not the camera.
Did you turn like several times?
Yes, a lot.
Oh my god. I hope it's not hot. I hope it's not Rob.
That was me. We're going to learn and we're going to have a lot of fun.
Yes, we do. And if you stay there, you will check it out.
There's two things. One is it's a bucket list item. And the second one, I think, just people are crazy. To jump out of a perfectly good plane, you can imagine, you have to be somewhat insane. For me, I don't fall into either of those groups. I never had it on my bucket list. Like, I'm afraid of heights, I'm claustrophobic, so I don't like small spaces. And these are the two things that skydiving is all about. So it was never something that I sat around, thinking, okay, I'm gonna do this someday and just kept putting it off. Never crossed my mind. Okay, so it's 2020, right? This is when it all started. We all know what 2020 is about. I was used to traveling, like all the time, somewhere I would be off. I've climbed volcanoes, I've climbed glaciers and done ice climbing. I've been to the Caribbean, deserted islands, and just got shut down. Luckily here in Canada it was a really nice summer and I spent a lot of time on the boat. I had been locked down for several months by this point, and I'm like, okay, we have to come up with something. And I was like lying down on the lounger looking up at the sky, and then I thought, yes, skydiving. And then I started to think, is it lockdown? Is it COVID? what's going on in the skydiving community, because to me it seemed like a pretty good activity for social distancing. Not many people would be doing it. So I thought, yes, I'm gonna start to do some research. And I went, Googled skydiving close to me. There was a place only 40 minutes away. And as part of the Wave 2 opening of some non-essential services, they were going to be opening in a week and a half. It's not one of those things that I said, skydiving, and then we go and I start the next day. It was like about 24 hours. And I thought about it and I thought, yeah, I could do it. And then about an hour later, it was like, I don't know if I can do that. That's pretty intense. And I definitely am afraid of heights. And then I think I went back up again. My confidence rose. And then I said, okay, I'm gonna book it right now. Because if I don't book it when my confidence is high, then there's a chance that I don't book it at all. So I booked it, and it was for the opening day. It was like the very first day after lockdown that I could have gone. And so I was on the first group of people that could go skydiving in 2020. Then I had a week to think about it. So every time, I start to look up at the sky and I see the clouds, and my heart starts to go up a little bit, right? Like you get nervous just looking at the sky. And I really didn't have anything, like no perspective, because I didn't know anybody who'd ever done it before. I'd never gone to watch it. I never watched any YouTube videos or any documentaries on skydiving because it never crossed my mind before. Like once I paid the deposit, and maybe it's because I'm cheap, I'm not giving up on the deposit. It doesn't mean that I don't have doubts and I don't lose confidence at some point, but I regain it always quickly. So I go from, can I really do this, to, oh yeah, I can do this. I'm going to do it. Lots of people have done it. I'm going to do it too. It's not like, a lot of the things that I usually do where, okay, I make a plan to climb a volcano. Okay, I know I'm going to need to climb over 2 days straight up. It's going to be physically challenging, so I need to work on my legs. This was more just getting myself, to the place, showing up on the day, making sure that I wasn't terrified when I got there, that I was in a calm state. And that's almost as much training or practice for tandem skydiving as anything physical. It's so mental when it comes to skydiving. It's Saturday, July 18th. It is stage 3 in most parts of Ontario. I'm not sure I feel comfortable quite yet to go to a movie theater or go to a bar or a club or anything really tightly packed with somebody else. So something a little safer. Today we're going to jump out of a plane at 13,500 feet. I didn't tell people, especially in my family, particularly my mom. And I'll leave it up to you to decide whether you tell your mother or not. She would have been more nervous than I was. So I did let her know in, let's say, the half hour before I actually got to the site, to say, oh yeah, by the way, I'm going skydiving today. At first, I think she thought it was a joke. And then she realized, okay, this is Rob. He does stuff. He's probably serious. He's probably about to do this now. And I think her first response was, oh no, don't do it. By that time, I was going to do it regardless. I just saved her that 1 week's worth of anxiety.
And when you landed, you call her the first thing ever, right?
Yes, exactly. The first thing you do, and I'm pretty sure that almost everybody does this, they send a note to whoever, I'm alive. I made it to the ground. I pre-booked on the day for a particular time. And they tell you to show up a little bit earlier. So you get there, and the first thing you do with skydiving and just about any other extreme activity is you start filling out forms. You probably start reading some of the forms at the beginning, but by the time you get to the 4th, the 5th form about removing all liability from the drop zone and onto yourself, that you're physically fit, you're doing this of your own free will, There's no responsibility. This is a dangerous sport, and you just sign your name, and you sign your name, and you initial this, and you initial that. And then I was officially registered at the site. Even though I booked for a particular time, the plane has to be refueled, the weather is important, wind speed is important. These are all things that are not really controllable. There was probably a 2-hour wait time between the time that I got there, filled out the forms, and when it was actually my turn to go on the plane. I was just sitting around just watching the parachutes land because there were a number of flights ahead of mine. It kind of boosts your confidence a little bit that, you know, hey, they've obviously just jumped out of the plane. They obviously pulled the parachute. It's working. Most of the people landed on their feet. The tandem people, when they land, it's so smooth and so soft. Then they have this TV screen, and it's called the manifest, and it is who's up next. They take your weight because these planes are fairly small. They don't want to be overweight, so they try to even them out. So I look at the TV screen and I'm on the next flight. You can imagine you're sitting there and you see your name up on the screen and your heart rate goes up a little bit because you're next. The first thing you do is you get strapped into a harness. Very similar to an actual solo skydiver equipment, minus the parachute, because you're connected to the tandem master who has the parachute on. So you put this on and you're feeling like some sort of, you know, RoboCop, you know, person from the future taking some pictures and feeling, you know, pretty good about the whole thing because you're still not quite on the plane yet. It's just the excitement is starting to build. So the tandem master came over, gave me a few instructions about how it was going to go, right from boarding the plane to what we're going to do on the way up, what we do in Freefall to make sure that we have the right position. And I think a lot of it is just to try to calm you down a little bit because you're really not in charge of anything. You're with a professional who takes care of, you know, your entire safety, but because they're so close to you, I think they give you some instructions so that you don't either kick them somewhere that would really hurt. It only really took, you know, maybe 3 minutes from start to finish. Started up the plane, we start walking over to the plane. I'm like, oh, you know, I don't want these other people to get on first. You know, I don't want to be the first one. So I'm just kind of hanging out at the back. And then I realized that I'm the last one to get on the plane. Oh, wow, this is kind of cool. You know, everybody else is already on. And then I turn and sit down and I realize I'm going to be the first one off the plane. So the last one on is the first one off. And my seat was right beside the door. And then it struck me, it was just going to be me showing everybody else behind me how it was going to work. You know, lucky them, poor me. But you know what? That's just the way it went down. You really don't have a choice on that. All the way up, I had this in my mind. Okay, I'm not going to get to see anybody do this. I'm not going to see anybody move towards the door. I'm not going to see them go out the door. It's just going to be open the door and then, my turn is next. I'd really never paid attention on any of the other flights, and you really don't know exactly how high you are anyway until you get, you know, really up to altitude and the pilot comes on and announces we're at 26,000 feet, whatever it is. But by then, it doesn't really make a difference. So I looked out the window and I'm like, okay, we must be almost there. And we weren't even close, you know, and I've talked to a few other people and they've had the same reaction that at 5,000 feet, it seems really, really high. And you actually go almost 3 times as high as that. So that was a little bit terrifying that I felt we were already high enough. Nobody asked my opinion if we were high enough. We just kept going up. One of the instructors opens the door. The wind, you can hear the wind like crazy at that altitude. And because I'm sitting so close to the door, I can actually see out into the ground. And I took a second to think, what would happen on a passenger flight if you were sitting there strapped into your seat, having your peanuts, and somebody opened the door? There would be pandemonium. You know, people would freak out that the door was open, and yet here we were on this airplane with the door completely wide open. And that's when my heart rate went through the roof. It's like, okay, this is happening, and it's about to happen in the next couple of minutes. And I was wrong. As soon as they opened the door, you have to get out because they're at altitude, over the drop zone, and there's a whole bunch of people behind you. I went from sitting on the bench to being on my knees in the doorway in maybe a second. And I remember looking out, and the instructor gets himself into position, and that took me from the edge of the doorway to like hanging out over the edge like this. And I'm looking down, and it was like a roller coaster ride, you know, where you're slowly going up, you're going up, you're going up, and just as you're about to go over the peak, you just hang there for a second, looking straight down, and the next thing you know, I'm out. It's not like you black out. It's not like you close your eyes and you miss a small part. Your brain literally stops working due to what I found out later is called sensory overload. There's just so many inputs hitting you. The wind, the height, you know, the new environment, where your brain just goes, nope, too much. And then you come out, and seconds have passed by this point. And the reason I knew this was because in the video, my GoPro video, I could actually see the bottom side of the plane. Had no recollection of that. The next thing I knew, we were in the Freefall, and I kind of came to a little bit, and my instructor was so good. He was able to do 360s. I'm not getting dizzy. It was quite exhilarating. Like, I'd never experienced anything like that. The wind hitting your face is so intense. If you ever stuck your head out of a car window at 50 miles an hour or 80 kilometers per hour, you know that it's hitting you very fast. When you're skydiving, terminal velocity is around 180 kilometers an hour, so you can imagine the wind hitting you on the way down. And the first thing that crossed my mind was, I'm getting my money's worth out of this, because it seems like we're just falling for a really long time. Just as I'm starting to get used to it a little bit, the tandem master taps me on my shoulder, which means I need to cross my arms, because you don't want to have your arms out when he pulls the parachute, because you go from 180 kilometers an hour down to about 10 in a half of a second. He taps me on the arms, I cross, and he pulls the parachute, and it's like you jerk. Like, you feel this, almost like this upward rush. It's this feeling where the noise almost stops. You feel like the jerk of the parachute. You can hear the parachute above you, kind of flapping a little bit. And I think it was the first time that I took a run. You almost feel like, okay, well, the hardest part is way over at this point. Now it becomes a sightseeing adventure. After, you know, I kind of calm down, because I'm sure everybody takes the next 5 or 10 seconds to say, oh my God, what did I just do? Before they start taking in the surroundings. And the first time you're under parachute like that, and at that height, even though you're connected to somebody else, you don't ever get that perspective on the world unless you do something like that. The drop zone that I had chosen was really beautiful. There were 2 rivers that intersected. You can see fields, you can see houses and buildings and all of those things. And yeah, I've been in a plane, but it's not the same. The only way you can experience that is to go skydiving, to see what the world looks like from that high up, connected by strings to a piece of fabric above you. Now, I'd love to tell you I looked up and saw the parachute. I didn't. It never crossed my mind to actually look up. I was too busy looking down, taking in the surroundings. And it was such a relief to have the quietness, and there was still a little bit of wind, but not like the wind that you experience in Freefall. We had a lot of time to make some turns, and actually could feel some of the G-forces with the blood rushing down to my feet as we did some really fast turns, and that was amazing. That was like more roller coastery than anything. I got to steer. Generally, a good tandem master will allow the person to take the toggles and, pull down on the right and you'll turn to the right, and pull down on the left and you'll turn to the left. And it gives you like this fantastic sense of accomplishment that you're actually controlling this parachute. I never felt unsafe the entire time, which was really good. And I know a lot of people are probably worried about how hard it is to land. They've done this thousands of times. They can land, you know, in a very particular spot. They're that good. And the landing is so soft. You just, you know, cruise in and you land on your butt and you just kind of skid a little bit with your legs up in the air. It was totally amazing. I can see why people have it on their bucket list. The first thing that crossed my mind, thank God I landed. I can't believe I did it. I'm so happy that I did it.
That was awesome!
Yes! Woo! Congratulations on your first jump!
That was great!
Woo! That was the tandem master. Did a good job, I guess.
You did an awesome job.
Great.
Congratulations.
Congratulations on your first jump. Woo!
You have this, you know, huge amounts of adrenaline that lasts for hours after the jump. Like you just have this, you know, this emotional high based on the accomplishment and the adrenaline and the endorphins running through your body. There are very few times I think that you can feel like that, you know, just based on an activity. I was a little bit sore. I had the straps here, connect here, and I had a little bit of a bruise, not much. I certainly didn't feel it at the time. And I don't know if this happens to everybody or not, but I did have a little bit of a bruise just on one side of my shoulder where probably the strap, you know, just on the parachute deployment, it stops you so fast. And it went away within a week. But for me, it was like a battle scar. Right? You know, it's something to be proud of because not only did I do it, I did it with a little bit of, you know, a memory of that lasted, you know, another week after the jump. I went back home and I wanted to re-experience it again. I couldn't wait to see the footage provided because I had a cameraman that jumped with us and he was videotaping the whole thing and they were going to edit and put it together. But I had my GoPro strapped to my chest the entire time. So I couldn't see my face, but I could see what I was seeing, and everybody else can see now what I was seeing at the same time, have that same feeling. And I know people who have watched this, and when you watch it, you're going to be like, oh my goodness, I don't think I could do it, or that was totally crazy, or the other response I got was, I really want to do that. That looks so cool.
Straight out in front? Yeah, that's good. Perfect. Thanks, man. Okay? Yeah, we'll just slide in on our bottom. Sounds good.
I think it was 2, maybe 3 days afterwards. I had come down, you know, I told the story 50 times. You want to tell everybody in the world about the experience, the adventure. It was really great. It's all part of the price of admission for skydiving. But then it was 2 or 3 days afterwards, and I started to think, bet you that there was a way to make this even more intense. They give you a nice certificate at the end of your first tandem skydive, and on the back of it, it talks about the progression to go on to the next course, or to take a course to become a solo skydiver, to do it yourself. And I looked at it and I turned it back over, and yeah, that's really not for me. And then it came back into my mind. Did I really skydive? I did. I jumped out of a plane at 13,500 feet, but it's kind of shoved out from behind because you're attached to the instructor, and he was going out regardless of what I wanted to do at the time. I was more thinking about how can I make this more intense, and the way to make this even more intense would be to do it yourself. I started doing some research again on the progressive freefall, is the course that you need to take to learn to become a solo certified skydiver. And there were a couple of courses coming up, and I really debated this one a lot. By this time, I'd started watching some skydiving videos. I started to think about any potential problems that might happen. If you do run into a problem, you only have a few seconds to fix it. In order for you to fix it, you have to have all of your senses. And during the first tandem, there was a time where I couldn't have fixed any problem because I was just oblivious to whatever was going on at that time. So I thought, you know what? If I do a second tandem and I can stay with all of my senses, not have any blackout period whatsoever, then I'll sign up to the course.